It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Rouse. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Rouse. WCPT. WCPT.
This the coldest boys show. You were getting the hour from 6 p.m. to 7. Chillin' with Lauren Cox and the man Marvelous. Shout out to Mr. Rouse and the Italian style. You want sports is the only politic.
WCPT. WCPT. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Rouse. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Rouse.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. We're streaming live on Facebook, broadcasting from the world's famous illustrious studios of WCPT, 820 AM in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago, in the frigid city of Chicago, in the outstanding neighborhood of Jefferson Park on Super Bowl Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. This is another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. And let's get right to it, ladies and gentlemen. You love him. He's the one. He's the only. He's not out on Madison Avenue hawking a cab or Uber. He's not at Wrigley Field in Lakeview area trying to see if he can get a ticket for the Cup games this season. No, he's not on the Dan Ryan at 35th Street outside a guaranteed rate to see if he can check out a Sox game. He's not even over at the United Center to see the Blackhawks or the Chicago Bulls. Ladies and gentlemen, he's in the studios. He's known as the Marvelous One. He's the one. He's the only. He's Dan Marver. What's up, Marver?
Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
I'm good. Are you okay?
CPT 820 AM. Hey, those of you that have 3-0 as your first square, hang in there for the first quarter of the Super Bowl. But now you can turn down the sound and turn us up.
Yeah, turn us up for sure. The Super Bowl is on, and we got it on as well. We know you have it on, but Marvelous said it exactly right. You can keep the Super Bowl on your channel, your computer, your smartphone, whatever the case may be. But, of course, you want to hear the volume on WCPT 820 AM for the fastest hour in sports conversation. And we have a show in store. Woo. But before we get into it, the Marvelous One, hey, man, how you been handling this cold weather that we've been experiencing?
Well, we were lucky. I mean, January wasn't that bad. And now, I guess, the other shoe is turned, or whatever you want to call it, but this is not unusual. I remember 2 years ago we had the polar vortex at the end of January, and 10 years ago people were stranded on Lakeshore Drive on this week with 23 inches of snow. And if you want to go back further, January of 1967 was like unbelievable, 20 plus inches of snow. So it happens. I guess the solution is to not live here.
Well, I mean, that is one solution, but you know what? There are other parts of the country that are experiencing, whether it's, the cold temperatures, the snow, and of course the East Coast, they're being bombarded.
Yep.
We know what happened in California all year long as far as the fires are concerned, the drought and the rain and everything. So, I mean, it depends. And, of course, you go down to Florida and you got to deal with all the hurricanes and, the Gulf Coast and all that stuff, Marvelous. So, you got to pick your poison, as they say, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. Well, you can have hurricanes, you can have wildfires and volcanoes and earthquakes. So it's a little bit of everything from Mother Nature, but this is what we get.
It is what we get, and this is what you get as well, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the fastest hour in sports conversation right here at WCPT 820 AM, the Rewind Sports 60, Jerry Riles, and of course, the Marvelous One, Dan Marver. That intro song you heard, it was from the 17th letter. Of course, he's known as Q, Quentin Demps, putting it together. He's obviously on assignment. His assignment is to watch the Super Bowl. And, of course, the beautiful, lovely, talented, and outstanding Lauren Cox as well. So it's just the two of us riding shotgun, handling business. And, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to tune in or give us a call to talk about our topic of conversation for the next hour, our number here is 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, and it's our immediate number to get in contact with us if you want to respond to anything that we're discussing regarding a subject matter that was brought to my attention, Marvelous, and I saw the report, and I was literally blown away, and my mouth hit the floor. And it's an ABC News investigation report done by reporter Ryan Smith of ABC, of course. And this past week, he revealed in his investigation and report that 2 former NFL players are suing the league due to experienced concussions. Now, these players suffer from depression, memory loss, and bouts of anger. The players, Kevin Henry, a former defensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Chicago Bear fans know this guy. He's a former running back for the dreaded Green Bay Packers. That, of course, Najee Davenport. But those 2 players say the league uses a formula, get this, called race norming. Now, that assumes that black players, they start at a lower cognitive level than white players. Race norming. The NFL formula used says black players start off at a lower cognitive level than the white players. It makes it more difficult for black players to qualify for compensation. Now, the practice is used, again, it's called race norming. The test results are adjusted for supposed differences between demographic groups. Yeah. So, of course, the black players of retired from the NFL have one set of rules in the test, and the white players have a different test. Henry, in 2017, underwent a series of tests that determined that he suffered from cognitive decline similar to early stages of mild dementia. Here's a comment from Mr. Henry regarding his concussions.
Football doesn't give you an expiration date. It just happens. You just expire. I've had 10 concussions or more, and that's not even common practice.
After his time in the league, Kevin Henry says he began suffering from depression, memory loss, and bouts of anger. In 2017, he underwent a series of tests, a doctor determining that Henry was suffering from a cognitive decline consistent with mild dementia. So he submitted a claim to the landmark 2013 NFL Concussion Settlement Program.
What was the result of the claim you filed?
I was denied.
He was denied. That soundbite courtesy of ABC News, of course, the reporter Ryan Smith, and that was, of course, Kevin Henry, former defensive player for the Pittsburgh Steelers, commenting on the case. Now, an NFL administrator claimed there were issues related to validity to the test. The evaluation used inappropriate norms. The concussion settlements, the 2 players accused the NFL of racial double standard. I hadn't heard this before. The NFL says the race norming formula is optional, but they also go on to say that clinicians who test the NFL players say they are required by the league to use the formula. Race norming was put into a place and is used to eliminate the amount the league has to pay out. Get this, folks. The amount the league has to pay out the former players who file concussion claims. So this is implemented. It is put into place so the NFL are selective as far as who they're going to pay money to. Some clinicians admit they were told to discriminate against the black player filing claims using this formula. The NFL says the lawsuit is entirely misguided. They also go on to say that race norming, known as demographic correction, is recommended but not required. The NFL goes on to say the concussion settlement program was agreed to by all parties with the assistance of expert neuropsychological clinicians. It relies on widely accepted and long established testing and scoring methods. Yeah. Now listen to this. 3,000 claims have been filed. There are 3,000 former NFL players who filed claims against the National Football League. Out of those 3,000 claims, 1,200 were paid out, totaling nearly $800 million. But no demographic data, marvelous, was available. So you don't know who received the compensation of those 1,200 players who got paid. You just don't know who they are. And based on this, it's pointing to the fact that the white players were able to collect, the black players were denied. Now, these 2 players are currently waiting on the judge's ruling on the NFL's motion to dismiss this case.
You'd think the name of the players could be obtained with freedom of information. You know, it's not like a secret document.
Well, that's the point, though, Marvelous. This is an exclusive, independent investigation by ABC News and Ryan Smith. So he brought it out this past week. I believe the report came out on Thursday. So it's definitely going to gather legs and wings and take off. And you can believe there are going to be other players that get wind of this, and they're going to be filing lawsuits collectively against the NFL regarding this matter, because it's, first of all, it's surprising to me that this sort of thing is put into place, race norming. It's unbelievable to me.
Well, even Congress might get involved. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon is apparently, he's saying that if ABC is reporting is true, the NFL has apparently pressured doctors to disqualify black former NFL players from benefits they earned, Wyden told ABC News. Shortchanging former players based on their race is both racist and rank hypocrisy. So maybe Congress will get involved too.
Well, I'm sure Congress will probably get involved, but as far as doctors are concerned, we're pleased to join on our TRS60 hotline, ladies and gentlemen. He's a neuropsychological psychologist, and he is Dr. Charles Gooden, PhD. He's a professor at NSU's College of Psychology. His research interests include the neuropsychology and head injury, stroke and multiple sclerosis, neuropsychological and personality assessment, rehabilitation and community reintegration following brain injury, neuropsychology in childhood and in school settings, learning disabilities, hyperactivity, and general assessment. Dr. Charles Gooden, he was named the COP Professor of the Year. He's on our TR60 hotline. Doctor, welcome to the Rewind Sports 60 on this Super Bowl Sunday. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing very well, and we're trying to keep as warm as we possibly can. The temperature outside here in the beautiful city of Chicago right now is hovering around 5 degrees above zero, with the wind chill somewhere between 15 and 20 miles below. So it's frigid here. It's cold, but we're hanging in there, Doctor.
Yeah, well, we had the problem of dropping into the 50s recently. So
please.
We know what it feels like.
No, 50 degrees is like it's like summertime here in Chicago. Are you kidding me? But we thank you for taking some time out and appreciate your time joining us on the Rewind Sports 60. And I had to reach out to you because you were quoted in the story that was released or published or broadcast this past week on ABC News, by the reporter Ryan Smith regarding this race norming. And I had to reach out to pick your brain, so to speak, and ask you to explain all this stuff that's going on, because there are a lot of people, I'm sure, listening to the Rewind Sports 60 who are unfamiliar with this race norming, and I'm sure there are probably some current players who are unaware and some former players. So can you kind of get us up to speed as far as everything that's transpired and what this race norming is all about?
Yes, it's all been, unfortunately, very complicated, but race norming started actually many years ago for the opposite reason that it's being used in the current state, is when black individuals were being overdiagnosed with schizophrenia or brain damage or significant psychological impairments, because the norms that were being used for white populations were not appropriate for the black populations. So in order to correct that, this was led by black psychologists. They came up with the idea of developing alternate norms for these tests. So as a consequence, when this testing began with the NFL, apparently someone suggested that we should use different standards for each group. The problem is that the testing was never intended to be used the way the NFL was using it. These norms are only advisory. So I can look at the norms of an individual compared to black Americans, compared to white Americans, to young people, to old people, and then I make a clinical judgment based on that individual's history, education, achievements in life, and the like. But in this case, the NFL has given very rigid cutoffs. that doesn't allow for clinical judgment. So as a consequence, they are trying to use numbers to replace the judgment of the clinician because they didn't trust clinicians to fairly evaluate these players. So when the agreement was reached, the clinician was given in the document the option of using either the black or the white norms. And it became very obvious that using the black norms for black players and white norms for white players was very biased. And as a result, some of us, like myself, asked again to clarify that we did not have to use the black norms. And those norms also have other problems because of the way they were gathered and other issues related to them, which aren't important here. But when I started working with the settlement, the NFL, I was told, use the norms you think are the fairest. So I did. And when I did that, the people who supervised the settlement said, that's fine. And they pushed the clients through and said, yes, they're impaired. But when the NFL got to review it, their lawyers got to review it, they challenged cases where you use the general norms for everybody, but where the black norms would have made the person not qualify. They didn't care if you used the black norms and they still didn't qualify, or which norms if they didn't qualify at all. But in any case where there would be a difference, the NFL lawyers have challenged this. So when the NFL says you're allowed to use anything you want, they're not actually telling the truth. That it is possible that's the intention of the NFL itself, but it's certainly not the intention of their attorneys. They also challenged these results in the testing on a number of other reasons, which again, the person who supervises all this has approved what we did, but then the NFL challenges it in order to reduce the number of people who are allowed to be qualified for the settlement. I continue to use the same norms for everybody, but a lot of people felt pressured because they were being investigated just as I was when they didn't do it the way they apparently the lawyers really wanted us to do it. I said that I didn't care if they were going to investigate me. I was going to do it correctly or not at all. So that's how we got to where we are now.
Well, congratulations to you, and thank you for standing your ground. And you know, you took an oath, I believe, and you know your ethics stood in place, and you stood your ground. So, congratulations to you. And we're on with Dr. Charles Golden. He is a neuropsychologist at Nova Southeastern University, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60. And our topic of conversation for the fastest hour in sports conversation is race norming in the NFL. Two former NFL players filed a lawsuit against the league, claiming that there is bias and discrimination in the testing regarding brain injuries and concussions. One thing that stood out regarding it, and thank you so very much for clearing it up as best you can, because I know a lot of people are still kind of in a fog and still kind of confused as far as everything that's going on. But the one thing that you talked about was clinicians who were feeling the pressure from the NFL lawyers, and they were threatened to be investigated. What would the NFL and the lawyers be investigating regarding this matter?
Well, they would be investigating whether you were appropriate for being a tester in this program. And for some people, the program has ended up paying a great deal of their income, as well as they could challenge your reputation, which that that you're not doing the testing correctly. There's something wrong with your approach to testing, and both economic and reputation are issues that affect a lot of people.
So you're actually saying that the National Football League and their lawyers said that you abide by, the option or the recommendation regarding race norming and using the individual testing for the African American former NFL players compared to the white NFL players, that you as a professional in your field could face some pressure and face some character assassination along with the monetary issues as well if you didn't follow protocol regarding the National Football League. Is that what you're saying?
Those were the implications. No, but the people who actually supervised the settlement have always been very nice, and they bring back questions from the NFL lawyers. All of these questions have come through the NFL lawyers. In most cases, there are some others that come through another group, but the impression has been that, again, since I got involved in this controversy, I have not had any referrals, but that's become complicated because we also have COVID going on, so it's hard to make a reasonable statement, although I was told by one of the attorneys involved that my name is no longer on the list of people who were approved to do testing. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told.
Dr. Golden, this is Dan in the studio. Let me circle back a bit. You evaluated Mr. Davenport in 2019, correct? But you evaluated other players too. Is that not correct?
Yes, we've been evaluating paper. We had been doing it for about 3 years.
And so, as a result of your evaluation, you determined obviously that an individual such as Davenport was cognitively impaired, and that race norming was merely a recommendation, but you did not apply the full demographic correction. It sounds like in the article. Does that sound about right?
That's right. I treated everybody as if they were the same race.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey, doctor, were you surprised to see this race norming when you were asked to do the testing, and that there were two different tests, one for African American former athletes and one for the Caucasian white athletes? Were you surprised when you saw this? Because me as a lay person, a media person, and someone following sports, I was surprised, to be honest with you. We're talking about 2021, and this sort of testing is implemented and put in place, and if you don't abide by it, you could suffer repercussions. Were you surprised when you saw this?
Well, recognize that the same tests are used for everybody. It's just how they, for example, in the white population, a score of 10, to simplify this, might be seen as impaired. Whereas if you're black, you have to get a score of 7 or 8. You got to get a lower score before you're seen as impaired. The exact same test. It's just different thresholds that you have to meet in order to qualify as being impaired. So, yes, I was surprised at that, which is why I'd asked them the question of whether we had to use these norms, because I had questions about them. And again, I was told no. And as I said, the settlement people, both in Mr. Davenport's case, approved what I wrote and sent him through to be compensated. And the NFL is allowed one last time to object, and that's when their lawyers made that objection.
Wow. So what's the next step? And it's interesting because, the former Pittsburgh Steeler defensive player, Kevin Henry said, hey, you know what? Listen, we're out there playing football just like the white guys. We get hit. They're not hitting us lesser because we're black or more because we're black. It's a car crash, every play. He said, we're getting hit hard. We're getting tackled the whole 9 yards, comparable and equal to our colleagues, our white, teammates and the opposition, yet they're tested differently. And I mean, that's a valid point because listen, concussions, they don't, it's like this virus, it doesn't select, hey, you know what, I'm going to take care of you because you're black. I'm going to make it more extensive because you're black. No. When you get hit upside the head playing, in my opinion, the greatest sport in the world, but the most violent and dangerous sport in the world, we've seen a lot of players who have suffered a lot in their daily life after leaving the game. And it's just surprising and appalling that the National Football League would put something in place like this and not just judge everyone equally and fairly. And it's very disappointing, to be honest with you. Any comments regarding your thoughts on the division as far as, concussions are concerned? Did we lose him? Oh, we must have lost him. Hey, Devin, if you can call him back, tell him I don't know what happened. We apologize to any of you out there listening. We were on with Dr. Charles Golden, Nova Southeastern University neuropsychologist, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60 to discuss former NFL players' race norming lawsuit that was just unveiled or just came publicly. ABC News.
That's right.
With a report this past week.
The poor
Brian
guy,
Smith.
Poor guys in Fort Lauderdale, he said it was 50 degrees there.
Yeah, well, I wish it was 50 degrees there. We're going to go commercial free, ladies and gentlemen. We want you to be a part of it. If you have any questions for yours truly, Jerry Riles, of course, the Marvelous One, Dan Marver, please feel free to give us a call. Hey, Dr. Goldman, yeah, I was asking you, I said it was appalling and disappointing, because Kevin Henry said, hey, listen, you know what? Concussions, it's not selective. You get hit upside the head, and he said multiple times, 10, 12 times, he said not even including practice, and, life after football has been basically hell for him. There's no difference between being a black former professional football player and a white professional football player because you both suffer the same sort of injury. I just wanted to get your comments on what Mr. Henry had to say regarding that.
I agree with Mr. Henry. I was very surprised that the NFL contested these cases. And I'm even more surprised after they made their statements publicly that you could use either set of norms and it didn't matter. And yet, that's exactly what we're arguing about here, is which set of norms we use.
Where do you see this thing going from here moving forward?
Well, of course, it's in court. It's going to be up to the judge. The law attorneys seem to think they have a strong case, but I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really comment on that.
Sure.
But I hope that it will go through the courts and that they will enforce the rules that say that it's up to the clinician to make the choice as to what the appropriate norms are.
Yeah, we're going to have an attorney join us in a few minutes who are representing, actually, Mr. Henry and Najee Davenport. He'll be joining us momentarily to give us the update as far as the legalities are concerned. But, Doctor, we want to definitely thank you for taking some time out on the Super Bowl Sunday again for kind of explaining everything to our listening audience and explaining it to us. Any final questions before we let you go and watch the game?
No. Thank you. Feel free to call anytime if you want to talk about this further.
You got that right. It seems like we're going to be talking about this a lot more moving forward because I'm sure there are going to be a lot more athletes who are made aware of this and who will be jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak, because it's just, again, it's an unfortunate situation. It's appalling and it's disgraceful. We're talking 2021 and you got the NFL lawyers stepping in and say, hey, you know what? You have to use these tests because at the end of the day, it's all about money. And out of the 3,000 cases that were filed, 1,200 of them were paid out somewhere $800 million. Yet we don't know who those 1,200 players are. So you can believe I'm sure a lot more players are going to get wind of this and they're going to want to be a part of it. So, Doctor, thank you so very much. Enjoy the 50-degree temperatures down here in Florida and send some our way if you can, because we got the next 7 to 10 days. It's going to be below zero for the most part. But God bless you. Hang in there. Stay safe and sound. We'll talk to you down the road.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
There you go. That was Dr. Charles Golden of Nova Southeastern University, a neuropsychologist, talking about race norming, the lawsuit. Unbelievable, Marvelous.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a solid case there, but maybe the attorney can shed some light on that.
Yeah, well, we do have the attorney who is actually representing a few of these players, or the two players that filed the lawsuit in this matter. And, of course, he's on our TRS60 hotline. He's with Zuckerman and Spader. He is attorney Eitan Goldman. Eitan Goldman is a trial lawyer who focuses his practice on white-collar criminal defense, securities, and commodities litigation and complex commercial litigation. Eitan has tried more than 50 cases to verdict and, until February 2017, served as the director of the Division of Enforcement of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Earlier in his career, he served as an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. And Mr. Goldman is on our TR60 hotline. He is representing the two players, as we talked about, Kevin Henry for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a former NFL player, and, of course, Najee Davenport, former running back for the Green Bay Packers. Clinicians fear NFL's concussion settlement program protocols discriminate against black players. He's on our TR60 hotline. Attorney, welcome. It's Jerry Riles along with the marvelous one, Dan Marver. How are you on this Super Bowl Sunday?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for taking some time out on this busy Sunday to join us to talk about this subject matter. We just had the Dr. Charles Goodman on, who actually handled the test. And the NFL said, you all know, I mean, that the NFL told them to stick with these race norming tests, the one for black individuals and the one for white individuals. And he asked, do I have to stick with it? And they told him no, but, so he didn't stick with it. But then once it got to the NFL, the lawyer stepped in and said, hey, you didn't follow, our advice as far as this race norming is concerned. You are representing these two athletes. Can you enlighten us as far as where we stand and the thoughts about this race norming, which is really surprising and alarming to a lot of folks because they simply didn't know about it?
Yeah, and that's one of the really awful things about this is, the NFL says, well, everybody had a chance to opt out, and these players, agreed to this, and it was in the settlement, and the court approved it, and the Third Circuit approved it, and there were 80 written objections, and nobody objected to the race norming. And the reason for that is that nobody knew about the race norming. It wasn't in the settlement. There's a line in, small print in Exhibit 2 to the settlement that talked about the availability of demographic data. But then the NFL and class counsel did this guide, the BAP guide, in secret, which basically instructed doctors to use the full demographic norms, which means discriminating based on race, which means race norming. And, Dr. Golden, like some other doctors, decided not to do it. And while the NFL now is saying the doctors don't have to do it, they can use their own clinical discretion, that's just not true because the NFL appeals whenever the doctors don't use it and a black former player gets an award. So, they're on the one hand, they're saying, well, it's not us that's forcing them to, but they are challenging. I mean, they went and they appealed Naja's award and got it reversed by the special masters. So it's not really up to the doctor's clinical discretion. It's the NFL trying to save money by making it harder for African-American former players to recover from their damage. And these people, some of them are really profoundly disabled.
No, there are a lot of them that are disabled. I know, Reeve Sori, who played with the great late Walter Payton. He's an offensive lineman. Today, he's in a nursing home, and he's almost basically bedridden, and most of it due to his playing days in the National Football League. And we're talking about the 70s. And
yeah.
the luxuries that these players have today, they certainly didn't have that back in the 70s. And as you all know, these players were told, hey, you got an injury? You got a concussion? No, how many fingers you see? I see 2. When there's 3, they say, get your butt back out there. And now you're absolutely right. These players are suffering, whether it's from, mild dementia, whether it's from knee replacement or hips or whatever the case may be. They're suffering because of the game that they love, and it's appalling, it's disgraceful, and it's just sad and disappointing that the National Football League in 2021 would even have something like this in place black and white. That's almost like the Jim Crow, where, the water fountain. The black water fountain is over here, the white water fountain is over here. It's unbelievable that this is even implemented, and for doctors such as Dr. Charles Gooden to say, I'm going to stick to my game plan, my teaching and my education, and then to be, reprimanded. And he said some of these doctors are being investigated, if they don't go along with the protocol. It's unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable. Now, how did you and your law firm get in contact or get a hold of these two players, Kevin Henry and, of course, Najee Davenport, regarding this race norming lawsuit?
Well, we represented some former players in the original lawsuits. A partner of mine represented Mike Webster, who's the Pittsburgh Steeler great, and just got to know some of the other lawyers. And then we heard about this, I don't know, about a year ago, and we really couldn't believe it was true. But we did some research, and it turns out that it is true. It's completely egregious. I mean, you talked about this being like Jim Crow. I mean, this is what Jim Crow looks like in 2021. It's not it's not big signs hanging on water fountains saying blacks can't drink here. It's this discrimination that's embedded in software. So you have two former players, one white, one black, same age, same gender, go in, take a test on a neuropsychologist office. They get the same exact raw score. Bell tells the white one, you've got dementia, here's some money. And they tell the black guy, you're just black. I mean, it is that simple and that egregious.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. It makes your jaw drop when you hear about it.
When I saw the report earlier this week, I couldn't believe it. I seriously couldn't believe it. And of course, the next day I had to give you a call to see your availability to come on to talk about this, because I was the investigation by ABC News, and congratulations to Ryan Smith on the work that he's done and put into this to reveal this. But I was just beside myself when I saw this, and I said, we certainly have to discuss this. So I appreciate yourself, Attorney Aidan Goldman, coming on to discuss this with our listening audience.
Hey, Mr. Goldman, this is Dan in the studio. I'm looking at the complaint. Is this the one in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, Davenport and Henry versus the NFL? Is that the one that you're involved with? Or is there,
yeah. I mean, the concussion settlement was reached in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, right? Like, there were many, many different lawsuits for guys who had suffered concussions against the NFL, but then they all got consolidated as one class action before a judge in Philly, the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. So we brought a couple different matters last August. On the same day, we filed a Article 27 motion within the settlement, where we basically said to the judge, look at a settlement. It does not require what the NFL says it requires. And then we also brought a 1981 lawsuit, and that's just the Civil Rights Act, saying that you can't discriminate against people.
So has COVID slowed down the process, or where does this stand now?
Well, the judge actually dismissed without prejudice our Article 27 motion, which we've appealed to the Third Circuit, and we're waiting to hear about that. And then the 1981 lawsuit, we've got a hearing, I think, in March. So it has been slowed by COVID, but, the wheels of justice are continuing to grind, even if kind of slowly.
Yeah. Did you see more players getting involved with this? Because, again, I'm sure there are a lot of them who are unaware, and we know some former players. We have one here, Quentin Demps, who's a part of our broadcast team. He's not here, of course, today, but he played in the league for 10 years, and I'm sure he's got some issues. I know some other former players who played on the '85 Bears team who, some are doing well, remarkably, but others are still, they're suffering. Jim McMahon, we know, won a suit regarding concussions from the league, and maybe he was one of the 1,200 people out of the 3,000 that got compensation for this. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know specifics about that. I mean, the NFL has all these statistics, and one of the things that we're asking for is the numbers and the comparison between how hard it is for a black former player to get an award versus a white former player. And I think you're right about former players. I don't think they had any idea that this is how the settlement was going to be interpreted by the NFL, because I've talked to a bunch of former players, and to a man, black or white, they say they never would have, voted for this. They never would have agreed to the settlement if they knew that it was going to be implemented in this discriminatory way.
Well, that's part of the defense for the NFL. They're saying that all sides agreed to this.
Yeah, well, that's not true. All sides agreed to the settlement. Settlement doesn't say there's going to be a black door and a white door.
I'm sure it doesn't.
If they had said that out front, this settlement never would have been approved by the players.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case as well. And they just wanted to, do their homework and they tried to pull a fast one. The interesting thing about this is the fact that, again, that they say, hey, we can pull a fast one. And this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. These guys aren't starving. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and these players put their heart and soul on the line for this game. And even through this pandemic, it's refreshing to watch these guys play because it's a form of entertainment and it's a stress reliever, right? So it's surprising that the National Football League and their attorneys even had the gumption to put this in place. I still can't believe it. I really can't.
Yeah, the NFL is the most powerful, most lucrative sports league in the world. They something like $15 billion a year, and they're doing this. I don't think they're doing this because they hate black people. I think they're doing this because they saw a way of saving money, but it doesn't make it right.
Well, wait a minute, attorney. With all due respect, hate is a strong word. You're right. Hate is a strong word, but in discrimination, when you discriminate, that means you have a strong dislike for something, and you're going to put action behind it to make sure that whatever group is being discriminated against don't succeed. So there's something going on in there for you to separate the whites and the blacks and say, we're going to take care of the white guys who've gone through all of this, but the black guys, it's questionable. I don't know.
This is a racist policy. No question about that. I'm not in any way trying to defend the policy. I'm saying I think their motivation is to save money.
Sure.
And they're doing it on the back of the former players who gave their blood, sweat, and tears for years for this league. And some people say, oh, the NFL players are all a bunch of millionaires. They don't really need the money. Especially guys who played in the 70s and 80s and 90s. A lot of them didn't make that much money.
Right.
And your career as an NFL player is pretty short. So these guys, it's not like they're rolling it. I mean, they need the money, and some of them are just so disabled they can't even, work a job. They can't even provide for their families. So these are not huge awards that they're asking for. This is stuff that they really need in order to be able to lead, lives with dignity.
That's exactly right. And again, I talked about former Chicago Bear lineman Reeve Sori, who more or less is bedridden, and he's been that way for multiple years, and most of it is due to playing in the National Football League. So I certainly hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, Doc. Attorney, thank you again for taking time out, joining us to explain a little bit more. Where do we go from here?
Well, the NFL is wrapping themselves in the mantle of Black Lives Matter and anti-racism. So we're hopeful that eventually they will, see the light and do the right thing. And if not, we're just going to have to, keep litigating until we win the case. We've got a status conference in March before the judge on our Civil Rights Act. So hopefully that'll go well.
Well, attorney, you have our blessings here. You have an open forum. Anytime you want to join us to elaborate and keep us up to speed, the door is open. We really appreciate you taking on this battle for these retired players who are really, really needed. And God bless you. Keep up the good work, and we'll be in contact.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, attorney Eitan Goldman with Zucker Spader out of New York and Washington, D.C. on the race norming lawsuit filed by two former NFL players, of course, African-American, Kevin Henry with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and, of course, Najee Davenport, running back for the Green Bay Packers. Marvelous?
I'm sure the last thing the NFL wants to do is have a racist policy exposed. I mean, that would be rather foolish of them to not knowingly do such a thing. So it is quite puzzling.
It is quite puzzling. And again, great work by Ryan Smith of ABC News for doing this investigative reporting and bringing it to light. Because again, I definitely know fans were unaware of this, and I know that there are a number of current players and former NFL players who totally are unaware of this, and the attorneys for the National Football League felt, hey, you know what? We could pull a fast one. And they agreed to it, and before they know it, boom. It's boom. But the bad thing about it is these doctors, these neuropsychologists who are doing the testing, when they say, hey, we're not going to follow your protocol, they're being reprimanded and challenged. Yeah. Which is, that's a form of bullying. It's unfortunate. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Well, the one fortunate thing is we're a week away from Valentine's Day. Yeah. You got any plans for Valentine's Day, Marvelous?
I think it's going to be below zero between now and then, so it might be a good day for cuddling.
Yeah, you can do the cuddling thing. You still do that? You play footsies under the blanket and all that stuff, Marvelous?
You have to.
To keep warm, right?
Right.
Well, I'm trying to figure out some ways and some ideas to, liven things up next Sunday, Valentine's Day, and because you always got to do it. There's no question about it. Regardless of whatever the situation is, you gotta celebrate Valentine's Day with your loved one. And what other better way to celebrate than having dinner? Maybe at Serenello's in Wheeling, located on Milwaukee Avenue. We're pleased to be joined by my good friend. I love this guy. He's fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, they say the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach. This guy has my heart because he goes through my stomach. He's on our TRS60 hotline, ladies and gentlemen. He is the Honorable Chef Michael Bonner. Chef, how are you?
Good, Jerry. How you doing tonight?
Hey, we're doing good. We're trying to keep warm as best we can, brother. But I definitely wanted to get you on and see what's going on. We miss being over at Serenello's. We just miss being in the environment. But with this pandemic and the virus and the opening and closings of restaurants, man, you well know firsthand it's been very, very difficult. And real quick, get us up to speed as far as how things are going for you and the restaurants and the business.
Well, it has been a real challenge. 2020 is a year that you want to forget. But I've been thankful for the customers that are listening and those that have ordered from the restaurant via carryout and given us an opportunity to keep the doors open. We're thankful that we have the opportunity to get diners back into the dining room. And I just wanted to let you know that this weekend we're going to be doing brunch, Valentine's Day brunch, and we have wonderful menus put together that are for curbside Valentine's Day menus to go, as well as in-room dining. So it's been a real challenge, but we've been trying everything we can to stay relevant and keep people knowing that we're here and reaching out for support.
Yeah, well, you know what? I know it's been hell. It's been hell. I know it, and my prayers and my money even has gone over to you to offer as much support as we possibly could because it's just been very, very challenging and very demanding. But the good thing about it is the fact that you keep rolling. This is what Chicago is all about. This is what, the Windy City and the neighboring towns are all about, Chef. You roll up your sleeves and, you put your hard hat on, you get your lunch pail, and you go to work. And you and your team have certainly done that. And, better days are on the horizon, and the light is at the end of the tunnel, I truly believe. But share with us a little bit more about the brunch and what people can expect, being a part of that. And, of course, the great Valentine's Day dinner next Sunday.
Well, thank you for saying that. We are trying our best to stay relevant, and we're putting our head down every day to make it work. But specifically with the brunch, we're doing a Valentine's Day brunch with roses and an opportunity for everyone to get back into the relaxing mode and enjoying themselves in the restaurant, enjoying themselves for a Valentine's Day lazy Sunday. And we also are offering an opportunity for people to, have the curbside menu that has lobster, filet, and, different other things that we have going. And we just want people to realize that the restaurant community is there for them to be able to enjoy themselves. And hopefully we love to get them back into the restaurant as they are comfortable, or, their comfort level allows them to be. But at the same time, if they don't want to come back in the restaurant and enjoy the indoor dining, they can come into or order curbside carryout.
Hey, this is Dan in the studio. I assume with social distancing, you'll have some space limitations. I guess we better get our reservations in pretty quick, huh?
Very quick. But we're taking precautions. I mean, we are, spacing tables. Also, we're, just not allowing too many people in the room so that people feel safe coming back into the restaurant. But at the same time, we want people to enjoy themselves and have a good time. And I know that we all miss being in a restaurant and enjoying ourselves.
Hey, Chef, is there a minimum time limit for people if they want to dine in?
We've been paying attention to that. I mean, we say an hour and a half, but if you go over that, we're not going to, police you. Just come in and enjoy yourself inside the restaurant, and we'd be happy to serve you.
No.
So what time do you start serving on Sunday?
Serving starts on our Sunday brunch opens at 10 o'clock, and it ends at 2. We are accepting carry-out orders for curbside for the menu that we put together with the filet medallions and the lobster raviolis. You can pick those up starting Thursday, Friday, as well as Saturday. And in-room dining, you can come in. Restaurant opens at 11 o'clock, and we close at 8 o'clock on Sunday.
And Chef Michael Bono at Serenello's, let us entertain you in Wheeling. Real quick, you've incorporated or added some pizza into your dining. Is that accurate?
Yes, I'm glad that you mentioned that. We have, since the pandemic, opened another pizza concept called B Square. And it's a Detroit-style pizza that we're doing in the restaurant that features that classic square, crusty corners, airy leg, crispy crust. And you can order it for delivery out of the restaurant, B Square Pizzeria.
No, it sounds good, brother, and I definitely want to get my hands on one of those things as well, for sure. Right, Marvelous?
Yeah, better call in quick to get my reservation.
So that's a great segue. If people want to make their reservations to dine in for Valentine's Day or any other day, Chef, what do they need to do? How do they find you?
Well, two things. One, for B Square, just go online. We're available on Open Table as well as Talk. If you are interested in ordering or making a reservation for the restaurant, visit our website at serenellos.com or Open Table, or just call the restaurant directly, and we'd be happy to take or make your reservation there. And happy Valentine's Day. I'm looking forward to a great week. Even though it's cold, I heard the cuddle week with the temperatures out there. I'm in line with that, along with a piece of good crusty Italian bread and some red sauce Italian.
Yeah, Marvelous going to be cuddling up underneath the sheets with his beautiful wife, and he's going to be munching on some Detroit-style pizza.
No, I'm going to Serenello's now. The heck with that.
There you go. And what's that number again, Chef, for people to call in and make their reservations?
Yeah, that's 678. I'm sorry. No, it's 847-773-3861. That's Serenello's Restaurant.
Sounds good. Hey, and real quick before we say goodbye, have you been able to bring most of your staff back? I know, it was been trying times and challenging for them as well. Have you been able to bring most of their folks back?
We have. We are about 40% of our capacity right now. We've got about 40% of our staff back on staff. And it's like putting the band back together again, and we're happy about that. So, yes. Well, we're moving in the right direction.
Well, God bless you, brother, and keep it up and keep going. And if it was easy, as you all know, everybody would be doing it, man. But stay safe. We love you, love your team, and we love the food over there. And we certainly be in contact, Chef.
All right, Jerry. Have a good night.
You too. Take care. Stay safe, and get some pizzas out there, brother.
All right, my man. Take care.
That's Chef Michael Bono on our TRS60 hotline. Serenello's.
Yeah.
That's the place to be, man. Go ahead, Marvelous, jump in.
I forgot to
Don't be afraid.
I forgot to ask the price.
Well, if you go you go online, you can certainly find the price. There's certainly find the price. Hey, it's the fastest hour in sports conversation, ladies and gentlemen. If you miss any portion of this broadcast, you can check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on the rewindsports60.com. And, of course, on Wednesdays in the northern suburbs on Comcast Access, Channel 17, Channel 19, Channel 35 at 7 p.m. sharp. Any closing thoughts, Marvelous?
No, you can turn the volume back up. The GOAT is performing his magic again today with 2 minutes to go in the half.
Yeah, well, the Kansas City Chiefs get the ball in the second half, and you know what happened last year. What happened last year.
That's right.
Mahomes, talk about magic, man. He brought the magic out in the second half, and, of course, wins the Super Bowl as well as the MVP title. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy your rest of your evening. Enjoy the week. Stay warm. We love you. Hang in there. Thanks to our esteemed executive producer. He gets an E. Executive producer, Devin Tingle. Ladies and gentlemen, it's another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. Take care. Have a good one. We'll talk to you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Relax, reset, rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast with yours truly, Jerry Riles, and the Honorable Dr. Chad Padromas. Dr. Chad Padromas is the orthopedic surgeon at Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Centers here in Chicago, in Glenview, and in Naples. And he's the orthopedic surgeon at Padromas Stem Cell Institute. He's also the editor-in-chief of the Anterior Cruciate Ligament Reconstruction and Basic Science. Doctor, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jerry. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and trying to get through this snow and cold that we've been experiencing over the past week or so. And they're saying this upcoming week we're going to be in the teens and single digits as far as the cold temperatures are concerned. So just hanging in there. And it's Chicago weather. We're used to it. We just have to get through it. Other than that, everything's fine, Doc.
Super.
Sounds good. Hey, there's a lot going on regarding the vaccine. Of course, the new administration is trying to haul out as many doses as they possibly can to get it to the patients and people in need. Definitely those on the front lines, the nurses and the healthcare workers who are battling this thing to try to take care of everyone. And, of course, those people 65 years of age and older. And we've heard so many different cases regarding the vaccination, and obviously the benefits are to protect one and to protect your loved ones, but there have been some folks who have said they've experienced some side effects, and we've talked about it off the air for sure. May he rest in peace, and condolences go out to his family and his loved ones and the Atlanta Braves and Milwaukee organization as far as baseball is concerned. But Hank Aaron, after he got the vaccination, days later, 2 weeks or so, he's no longer with us. Cause of death was, natural causes. But some people believe that the vaccination has some downside to it. And I know that there have been people who said they've experienced some arm pain, some headaches, some extreme cases. It could be, fatal.
But for the most part, there are a lot of people who are praising the fact that they've gotten it, they feel better, and they're okay to move forward in your life. What's your experience as far as people that you know who have gotten the vaccination?
So I'm part of a thing called the C19 study group. Because I've published papers in this space, I was honored to be invited to join this group. It's a couple hundred of the smartest people there are, virologists, epidemiologists, infectious disease doctors, and others. So on a daily basis, I'm going through 30 or 40 messages in this regard. And so clearly, the vaccine's a wonderful thing. It's going to be the way out of the pandemic. And we need to get it rolled out as quickly as we can. But, as with all good things, it is not without its side effects, complications. And so, it's interesting, unfortunate. The basic thought is that the people who should get it are high-risk people who are at high risk of having problems, older people with comorbidities. Although overseas they found that people who were terminally ill, they had a significant number of deaths, so they recommended not giving it to them. So it can take a toll on people as well. But the other thing is that, the Pfizer vaccine was the first one out there, and people would get the first shot, be a little sore, no big deal. But the second shot is usually accompanied by far more severe side effects. Not to say you shouldn't do them, and in the vast majority of people, they pass. So by all means, do it. Although it's good for people to be prepared that they might be pretty miserable for, a day or two. But beyond that, there are some people that get more severe, more intense, and more long-lasting problems from the vaccine. And again, doesn't mean don't do it. By all means, do it. But recognizing these things, it would be nice to figure out a way to treat people who have them. So there's one intensivist who's part of the study group who has found people that get a chronic inflammatory problem. She calls it SIRS, an inflammatory response syndrome, and recommends people taking Tylenol, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug like Aleve and acetaminophen, and a non-sedating antihistamine like Claritin before, during, and after, and said that greatly mitigates it. So that can be useful. But in addition to that, there are people who get pretty severe and persisting musculoskeletal problems that have been noted. Now, it's fairly new. What is the incidence? We don't know. I have a friend who's an emergency doctor at a big hospital downtown who said she's seen a number of people with elbow problems on the same arm as the shoulder afterwards. And one such person is actually a personal friend, a middle-aged woman who called and said that several weeks after getting the first of the injections, which is not usually the one that's very severe, she got severe and unremitting pain in the elbow of the same arm. So it was in the elbow and radiated partway down the forearm. And I know her well. She's stoic. She's tough, not the kind of person to complain. And she said she was losing sleep and was at her wit's end, and it was driving her crazy. She'd taken medications, hadn't helped. So I've talked here and there on these podcasts before about what is often called low-level laser therapy, also called photobiomodulation, cold laser. And so what this is light therapy, where laser light that is powered below the level at which lasers produce heat. So people know there are cutting lasers, and you can get face peels, and you can do all kinds of stuff with lasers. So if you power the lasers much lower, maybe 100 milliwatts as opposed to 3 or 4 or 5 watts, laser light is picked up by the mitochondria in your cells and by a molecule called cytochrome C oxidase. And it catalyzes that molecule. It's an enzyme. It produces more energy, increases blood flow. And there's a lot more that it does, and a lot of it that we're not even sure. We're still figuring out. But the bottom line is it can have remarkable healing properties. So we have a machine like this. We write papers about it. It is our go-to treatment for people with back pain, neck pain. My wife, Marilyn, is a dentist, uses it for TMJ pain, which is her specialty. And it involves putting little pads on the skin, and there are laser diodes that attach to it. And you sit there for 20 minutes while the light bathes the area. There's no heat, no pain, no side effects. You can't feel it. It isn't covered by insurance, but it's pretty cheap, $50-$60 a treatment. And it works immediately, so you can tell right away. So we use it on people with back pain, neck pain. I have an NFL player who came to me. He actually came to me for PRP for his Achilles tendon, which I did. But prior to doing that, we did the laser treatment, which helped him a lot. And you did it before and you did it afterwards. So it's a real thing. So when she came to me and said she had that, I said, I don't know if the laser would be helpful for that, but it immediately popped to mind because, this isn't the kind of thing I do PRP for or really had anything to offer. So I said, why don't we try? Nothing to lose, really. So we did a treatment. Our physical therapist does it in our office. I did it at no charge because I really didn't know if it was going to be helpful. And she, after the one treatment, which was half hour, immediately afterwards, she was about 20% better. By the next day, she was 40, 50% better. This was on a Friday, this was last week. So she had one on Friday and Saturday and Monday and Tuesday. And she got a little better each time. After the Tuesday one, she said she was 90% better. She was ecstatic because she had been suffering so much and her suffering was so greatly alleviated. She left out of town Tuesday. Actually, I just talked to her. So this is 3 days later. And she said she's still the same. She's still, a little twinge, but not even close to what it was before. She's very happy. Now, the question is, I don't think it's a placebo effect because, she had this for 3 weeks nonstop. And immediately upon doing the treatment, she got better. So I'm sure it's a real effect. The question is, how many people could it help? So what I'm intending to do is recruit people for a study. And so I would do people for what we call a phase 1 study, maybe 10 people, I'm not sure, that I would treat at no charge and see how often it helps people. Because this treatment, it's safe and it's cheap. It's not as available as I'd like because there aren't many people that have that many of these machines, but they're out there, and we've got a very high quality one from Germany. There are other ones that are less powerful that might do the same thing that could be tried. A lot of chiropractors use them, for example. We have what's called a class 3B, which means it's powered from 5 to 500 milliwatts. There aren't that many of those out there. There are a lot of class 3A, which is 0 to 5 milliwatts. But they might work too, So I think it would be hugely beneficial to the public health if we were to identify if this were widely applicable for this problem, because obviously we're getting, millions of people getting hundreds of millions of people ultimately getting vaccinated, and getting repeat vaccinated, and we might be getting vaccines yearly more often than just once. And so these side effects are
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast by yours truly, Jerry Riles, and the Honorable Dr. Chad Padromas. Dr. Padromas is an orthopedic surgeon at Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Centers in Chicago, Glenview, and in Naples, and an orthopedic surgeon at Padromas Stem Cell Institute. He's also the editor-in-chief of the Anterior Cruciate Ligament, Reconstruction, and Basic Science. Doctor, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jerry. Thanks. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I just wanted to make sure I get that out for you and, make you sound even more important that you're very important. There's no question about it, but I wanted to give credibility to your status, your title, and your persona. Thank you, Doctor.
More than anybody else, but I appreciate the thought.
You're very important. Are you kidding me? Without you, we don't have the podcast. That's true for sure. Hey, Doc, there's so much going on in the world of sports. And again, I am very, very appreciative that, we have crowned a national champion as far as college football is concerned. That, of course, congratulations go out to Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide for winning a national championship title. Of course, the Los Angeles Lakers win the NBA title last year. The Los Angeles Dodgers, they win the baseball crown. And of course, we're moving forward to the National Football League with the Super Bowl. Congratulations to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs who are advancing again, opportunity for a repeat. And of course, the greatest of all time, still playing at the ripe old age of 42. And of course, Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ready to square off in Super Bowl 55 down in Florida. You love Florida, that's for sure. But they're expecting a crowd of 22,000 fans to be on hand to witness this extravaganza. Your thoughts on the Super Bowl matchups and, of course, COVID-19 and the precautions that need to be taken to get this thing kicked off.
My thoughts are that it's a great idea. My thoughts are with the fans, what took them so long. We all want to be safe, but you've got an outdoor stadium where you require masks, you can have social distancing, and so risk should be pretty minimal. Florida has been arguably the best run state in the country on a number of fronts, in terms of doing what's rational instead of politicians being overprotective for whatever reason. I think meaning well, but usually just being not as informed as they could be. So I think I think it's great. I think it's great. The Super Bowl, I think it's a great example of normalcy because, as I say, there's abnormalcy imposed, I think, beyond what it needs to be, and having this out there where things are closer to normal, still with precautions, is a great example for the rest of the country.
No, I think it's great as well. But again, when you talk about the great United States and the independent states as far as how they tackle handling COVID-19 and the virus, here in Illinois, we know that the numbers are continuously going down, and the vaccines are available, although it sounds as if they're running short. But as you talked about, the state of Florida just continued to move forward and plow through this. And of course, they're going to be hosting the Super Bowl down there. 22,000 fans. I mean, do you trust people to be responsible? I know we've seen fans in the stands at some of the collegiate games around the country and some professional games, but 22,000 fans enjoying the biggest game on the stage.
Yeah, I do trust people, and I wish politicians trusted people more than they do. There are going to be a few people who aren't going to wear a mask, right? It happens. But, you look around and people, not only I think are most people responsible, I think most people have gotten so terrified by the media portrayal that I don't think it's a problem. As I said before, it's an open air stadium. You can socially distance. You wear masks. I think it's going to be fine.
So here's the big question, Doctor, and it's again the media, the news media, which I'm a part of. I've seen it swayed in both directions on both sides with this new variant that's hit the United States from the UK, now out of South Africa, saying it's more contagious, and the social distancing that we're practicing now, minimum 6 feet, that with this new variant, this new strand, that we may have to take more precaution, i.e. double masking. And it's already hit certain states, South Carolina, here in the state of Illinois, and other states around the country. Do you see that being somewhat of a problem by next week when we get to the Super Bowl, that it may have to have a little bit more focus and attention placed on it?
So, Jerry, I don't. I could be wrong. And obviously, I hope it's not a big problem. But this is just one more in a continuous stream of items about new things that purport to say that things are going to be horrible. And so far, they've turned out not to be. I gave the example before about the well-meaning doctor, I think, at Penn State, who said that something like a third of the football players are going to have heart problems from this, and they don't. I think more contagious doesn't particularly matter. If it were more deadly, that might matter. But nobody said that. So I think it's just, I think it's a combination of a lot of unfortunate factors. I think bad news sells. It's like I'm kind of weird analogy, but I don't even listen to the weather in Chicago anymore because, every year, 3 times a year, we're going to have a blizzard of the century and it's going to be horrible. And it's, and I don't mean to minimize it. And there are people that get affected by it, but I don't know, it's Chicago, it snows and it gets cold. And so you just prepare but bad news sells, right? So I think saying, wow, we've got a new variant, as a teaser for the evening news, it sells. So not necessarily blaming the media. The media's always been that way, so there's that. I think that I've said it before. I think that there are a lot of politicians who get carried away with their own authority. And so I think these provide excuses for them to do more than they should. And, you can go beyond that to various things that sound like conspiracy theories and who knows, but, it's kind of a fact. The more negative things you put out there and the more you shut down society, the more small businesses go under. Now, that's everybody publicly agrees that's a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, there are some corporations and some people that are doing very, very well from this, right? And so there are conspiracy theorists out there who kind of think that it's a semi-permanent situation to make us like China and in Asia where they wear masks forever, and that there's always a new variant, there's always a new this, there's always a new that. So the history of this thing has been so egregious and so horrific, as I mentioned last time, with overstating the death, starting with Neil Ferguson at Imperial College and his terrible track record on models and then applying a bad model to this. So I haven't seen anything that leads me to think that things are going to be significantly worse as a result of this variant. I mean, and going back and not to be too long-winded here, but there are real consequences to alarmism. I brought up about poor Governor Cuomo of New York. I'm sure he's a nice man and I'm sure he loves his constituents, but his action to force people out of hospitals into nursing homes, everybody agrees, I think, resulted in many, many unnecessary deaths. Now, I'm not saying I think his action did that. I don't necessarily blame him. I certainly don't blame his motives. But think about this. Why did he do that? He did that because people were estimating that the hospitals were going to be so overwhelmed, we'd have no respirators and no ICU beds that you had to clear the hospitals in advance of it. Well, it turned out to be not even close to being true, right? They brought that Jacob Javits ship in and all this, and they had more than enough. President Trump, love him or hate him, made it a point to get enough ventilators, and nobody's been short of ventilators, So there are Democrats, Republicans working together. But my point is just this. You can just say, well, better to be overly cautious, but alarmism has definite consequences. So alarmism in that case, false alarmism, resulted clearly in thousands of deaths. Not questioning anybody's motives, but it did. So I'm just saying, lockdowns, extra precautions have real world negative consequences, which it's easier to ignore than it is the death count from COVID. So I'm just saying it's a bad thing, and people shouldn't adjust their behavior on alarmism without really good justification.
No, and I certainly agree with that, Doc. I think it needs to be justified as far as why we as a society do what we do, to the defense of those. Because here's the real issue from my perspective. This is something almost paramount that we've never seen or experienced in our lifetime, and that includes our leaders. As high as the Washington D.C. is concerned, to local leaders, to the storefront and the entrepreneur, business owners. This is something that we've never seen before and something we haven't experienced before. So for me, it's kind of learn by trial and error and learn on the job, so to speak, because there was points in time a year ago at this time where it was looked upon as, it's just a little virus like the flu. It'll be gone within a matter of, weeks to months. By the time the temperature raises, it'll be gone. to leaders saying you don't need to wear a mask, to now in January of 2021, they're talking about double masks. So I think it was hit and miss for everyone involved, including the average layperson, the average citizen, because we just simply didn't know. Some people overreacted to the information that was being presented. Others turned a deaf ear to it. So I think we're all in this together. And for me, the best case scenario is to maybe play it to the safe side, because we simply don't know. And I kind of compare it to the AIDS epidemic back in the late 80s and early 90s, when it first ran rampant in this country and around the world. We didn't know, and there were some false prejudgments and accusations and all sorts of things, conspiracy theories that evolved from that. But we learned over time to let science do its job and let the experts do their job. And we got a control and got hold of it, and it's under control, and we found a solution for it. So I kind of apply it to the same of what we're going through today. And I'd rather be safe than sorry, as they say. And you cannot question the more than 400,000 people. Boy, I guess you can, but the more than 400,000 people that have died from this virus. Whether you believe the number and the cause is another concern, but as of now, we're on a record of reaching 450,000 people to die from this. So for me, and again, I applaud those in the sports world that we were able to watch from collegiate sports to professional sports on weekends to take our minds off of this. But I would not want to be in the shoes of these experts and these scientists, because they truly, in my opinion, don't have the answer as well. And they're learning just like we are as we go. My prayers are in hope that we can get control of this thing and get back to some new normalcy.
This question, you said be safe. Question for you. Do you think that people, when they lose their business, have adverse health outcomes? Do you think that there's depression and suicide and drug addiction and people failing to go in for health checks and living poorly and gaining weight? So do you think there's a consequence to excessive lockdowns?
Yeah, of course there is a consequence. I got a good friend of mine, and he runs Let Us Entertain You. He runs a restaurant in a neighboring suburb of here in Chicago. And when everything shut down, I physically saw his mental state and physical state change because of the pressure, because his livelihood and those that he's responsible for. So I certainly know that it has an effect on those people involved. And I know that there are people who were happy that the state here in Illinois was allowing in dining again. There were employees crying that they were able to get back to work. So I know the effects that it has, but I also know those individuals who won't be saying hello to family members or friends because they didn't listen to the warning signs, and that individual is no longer with us. There's a family down in Texas ignored the warning signs and everything of the virus, and 7 members, they had a party, and 7 of those family members succumbed to COVID-19 and the virus and are no longer here. So it's a double-edged sword, in my opinion, and it's almost a crapshoot or a roll of the dice. How do you approach it? How do you tackle it? I think the NBA did a fantastic job last year by having the bubble and staying strict and stern on the players' comings and goings. Now that they're out and available to travel and go here and there, we see that there's a different approach and a different effect as far as what's going on. So it's a very, in my opinion, very, very difficult decision to make. And I think we all personally have to make that decision, what's best for ourselves and our family and those that we come in contact with. And I'm hoping that, again, the light is at the end of the tunnel and we're close to getting to that light.
So the thing of it is, the basic point is that lockdowns haven't helped. And they've compared places that have them and places that don't, and they just don't help. Excessive restrictions just don't. You get consequences, you get deaths, you get suicide, you get mental health problems, you get more cancer deaths because people don't go in for their checkups because they don't want to leave the house. So lockdowns kill people, kill lots of people. That's the one end. In the middle, social distancing, probably masks are good. Okay. At the other end, the things that really would help dramatically are being suppressed. There's treatment that works. Hydroxychloroquine clearly works. Ivermectin clearly works. I had a patient call me today, and I'm heavily involved in this, as you know, and he didn't know anything about it. He said, "Hey, ivermectin's used all over the world." There was a recent court case where a family wanted to get treated with it. The hospital said no, and they sued, and the judge said, "You've got to let them," and another place as well. So, why should that be? So what I'm trying to say is this: the middle ground, common sense, mass social distancing, absolutely, and some restrictions, absolutely. But on the one hand, the overreaction kills people, absolutely kills people. So you can't just say be safe, let's overreact and shut down. You're killing people. You just are. So it just shouldn't be happening now. And on the other end, there are things that we could be doing to save lots of lives that aren't being allowed.
Shh.